Journey to the West in Vernacular, Chapter 33. Brothers fight against the Lianlian Tang Monk and his disciples bid farewell to the King of France and left the city to continue their journey west. Wukong told the story of how he converted the king to Buddhism last night, and the masters and disciples were all laughing. While joking, they walked into a towering mountain. Suddenly a gust of wind blew and dust flew up. Wukong was afraid that something would happen, so he asked his junior brother to protect his master, and he climbed into the sky on a cloud and looked down. I saw a goblin leading 30 or 40 little monsters, blowing wind and sand there. Wukong thought to himself, let Bajie fight this battle, and if he wins, he will be credited. If he is caught by the goblin, he will save him. Wukong jumped off the cloud and lied to Bajie that the smoke was because there was a man steaming rice and steamed buns in front of him. Bajie was greedy and hurriedly made excuses to find some tender grass for the horse. Wukong was secretly happy and told him quietly, the food is only for good-looking ones. If you are so ugly, I will definitely not give it to you. So Bajie turned into a fat monk and left. Bajie broke into the circle formed by the goblins and was surrounded by the goblins, who dragged him into the hole. Only then did Bajie realize that he had been tricked by Wukong, so he changed back to his original form, took out the rake and beat him randomly. When the old goblin heard the report, he immediately picked up an iron pestle and drove out of the cave. The two of them started fighting in the cave. Seeing that Bajie didn't come back for such a long time, Wukong plucked out his hair and transformed into himself. Accompanying his master and Sha Monk, he flew to the mountain valley in his true form on a cloud. When he saw Bajie and the goblin fighting, he shouted loudly, don't panic, Lao Sun is here. When Bajie heard this, he became energetic and defeated the group of monsters in a few strokes. Wukong ignored him and turned back to his master. After a while, Bajie came back and told Tang Seng about the monster he just met. Wukong encouraged Bajie and asked him to be the pioneer. Bajie thought that the monster's abilities were similar to his own, so he agreed. So, the four masters and apprentices went all the way into the mountains. Besides, the goblin lost the battle and was dejected. At this time, a little monster came up with an idea. Choose 3 little monsters that can change, turn into old monsters, and entangle Wukong, Bajie, and Sha Seng respectively, while he himself will catch Tang Monk. When the old monster heard this, he was very happy. He immediately selected 3 little monsters among all the little monsters and turned them into old monsters. Master Tang and his disciples came to the place where the monster was ambushed. A fake old monster jumped out from the roadside and went straight to Tang Monk. Bajie quickly took out a rake and started fighting with the goblin. Tang Seng and others walked forward a short distance. Another goblin jumped out of the grass and came to catch Tang Seng. Wukong hurriedly swung his stick and beat it away. Sha Seng protected Tang Seng and continued to move forward. Another goblin jumped out from behind the mountain. Sha Seng took a stick and started fighting with the goblin. At this time, the real fairy saw Tang Monk alone on the horse in midair, so he stretched out a 5-claw steel hook and grabbed Tang Monk. After a gust of wind, he disappeared. Wukong defeated the little monster under the grass slope and hurried back to the roadside. He only saw the white horse and luggage, but could not find his master. Wukong quickly led the horse and carried the burden, looking for his master all over the mountain. After a while, Bajie and Sha Seng ran back one after another, and the 3 of them got together to explain the situation. Wukong was so furious that he shouted, I've fallen into a trap. The 3 brothers guessed that the goblin must be in the mountain, so they went into the mountain to look for the goblin cave. After walking for more than 20 miles, he saw a cave under the cliff. Wukong hurriedly jumped to it and saw that the cave door was tightly closed. On the stone slab above the door were 8 large characters, Yinwu Mountain, Jie Chain Cave. Bajie saw it, holding a rake and smashed the stone door into pieces. The little monster guarding the door hurriedly ran in to report to the old goblin, and the old goblin's vanguard came up with another idea. He chopped off a willow root to look like a human head, sprayed it with human blood, and asked a little monster to bring it to the door on a plate, and said to Wukong, Great Sage Grandpa, your master was caught in a cave and eaten by my king, leaving only his head. After the little monster finished speaking, he threw it out of the doorway. Bajie started crying when he saw it. Wukong said it was a fake human head, so he took out his golden cudgel and smashed it to the ground. When Bajie saw that it was a willow root, he couldn't help but cursed. I used willow roots to trick you, pig ancestors. The little monster tremblingly ran in and reported to the old monster. The old monster asked someone to find an uneaten human head in the skinning booth to coax Sun Wukong. So, the little monster took out another human head and threw it into the hole. When Wukong saw that he was the real one, he couldn't help crying. Bajie and Sha Seng also cried loudly. Bajie held the head in his arms, ran up the cliff, dug a hole with a rake in a sunny and sheltered place, put the head in and buried it, and then piled a grave. The three brothers cried for a while. Wukong asked Sha Monk to guard the tomb and guard the luggage and horses. He took Bajie to kill the goblin and avenge his master. Wukong and Bajie came to the demon cave. They smashed the stone door of the demon cave with rakes and shouted, "Give me back Tang Monk." The old demon had no choice but to lead the little demon to fight out. Wukong knew that his master was killed by an old monster, so he raised his stick with murderous intent and started beating him. Bajie raised his rake and rushed towards the vanguard of the monster. The vanguard led the little monsters to surround them, and the two sides fought for a long time without deciding the outcome. When Wukong saw that those little monsters couldn't fight back, he used the clone method to pluck out a handful of vellus hairs, chew them into pieces, and spray them out, turning into a group of little Wukongs and attacking them. The 100 or 200 little monsters didn't care about the future and retreated into the cave. Wukong and Bajie were killing each other from the inside out. Bajie swung his rake up and down, and the little monsters he encountered either had 9 bloody holes or were beaten into pulp. The old monster was so frightened that he blew up a gust of wind and fled back to the cave. Pioneer cannot change. He is knocked down by Wukong with a stick and reveals his true form. He turns out to be an iron-backed gray wolf monster. After the old monster escaped back to the cave, he hurriedly asked the little monster to move rocks and soil to block the front door. Wukong took back his hair and chased after Bajie. Bajie beat the door with a rake, but the door didn't move at all. Wukong guessed that the door must be blocked, so he asked Bajie to wait for him at Sha Monk's place, and he went around to the back of the mountain to find the old monster's back door. Wukong turned around the hillside and heard the sound of gurgling water. He looked for the sound and found a mountain stream. There was a door beside the mountain stream. Wukong guessed that it must be the monster's back door, so he turned into a water rat and crawled into the hole through the ditch next to the door. He went all the way to the patio, jumped out of the ditch, and turned into a winged ant again, looking for the old monster everywhere. He spread his wings and flew to the middle hall. He heard a little monster running in and reporting to the old monster, Sun Wukong, Zhu Bajie, and Sha Seng buried that head as Tang Monk's head. When Wukong heard this, he knew that the master had not been eaten yet. Secretly happy in my heart, and decided to go to the master first. He saw a small door next to the nave that was tightly closed, so he slipped through the crack in the door. It turned out to be a garden. He flew deep into the garden and saw 2 people tied up under a big tree. One of them was the master. He couldn't help but change back to his original shape. He stepped forward and called Master and told the old monster's trick. "Master, please be patient a little longer." Wukong turned into an ant and flew back to the central hall. When he heard that the old monster was discussing with the little monster how to eat the master, he was very angry, so he pulled out a handful of vellus hairs, chewed them up and sprayed them, turning into countless sleepy bugs and getting into the noses of the monsters. After a while, all the monsters fell asleep. Wukong changed back to his original form, broke the door next to him, entered the garden, and untied his master. Another man tied to a tree also begged him to save him. Tang Monk told Wukong that he was a woodcutter and had an elderly mother at home. So Wukong also untied the woodcutter's rope. The 3 of them walked out of the back door, climbed up the stone cliff, crossed the mountain stream, and walked towards Bajie and Sha Seng. Wukong sent his master to Bajie and Sha Seng. When Bajie and Sha Seng saw that their master was safe and sound, they couldn't help crying with joy. Wukong returned to the monster cave, tied the old monster down with his limbs upward, picked it up with a golden hoop, and carried it on his shoulders out of the back door. He also asked the woodcutter and Bajie to find some firewood and throw it in, and lit a fire. All the little demons in the demon cave were reduced to ashes. Bajie beat the old monster to death with a rake, and the monster revealed its true form, a moxa-leafed leopard spirit. In order to thank Tang Seng and his apprentices for saving his life, the woodcutter begged them to see his mother. Tang Seng and his disciples went happily. When the woodcutter's mother found out that they were her son's saviors, she hurriedly kowtowed to thank them and prepared to prepare a fast meal. Alright, this part of the story ends here.
Want to know what happened next? Let's listen to the breakdown next time.